Some things sound like a cruel joke, but they really happen. Once, a man bought a piece of the past, and what he saw inside made him cry like a scared child. And this wasn't just any man. He was one of those suit and tie types, loud voice and firm steps, the kind who thinks money can even buy respect. His name? Arthur Varela, CEO of one of the largest architecture firms in Latin America, so rich he could make a Swiss bank jealous. But that day, he did something that didn't fit in his perfect script. He impulsively bought an old photo album from a homeless man. "How much for this junk?" he asked, wrinkling his nose like he was smelling garbage. The homeless man, grimy, but with eyes that seemed to know too much about the world, replied, "Depends what you want to see. There's memories here worth more than gold, and pain no one should have to buy." Arthur laughed. That cynical laugh from someone who only believes in their own arrogance. "Philosophy now, you selling it or not? I am $20. But careful, some things in there might make you see more than you want." And with that phrase, the album changed hands. Arthur tossed the money like a tip on a dirty table. He climbed into his imported SUV, blasted the AC, and threw the album on the passenger seat. "Probably just pictures of dead animals, slums, whatever," he mumbled, starting the engine. But then came the first strange sign. As he touched the album to open it, a smell hit him, not a bad smell, a familiar one. Orange blossom, just like the perfume his mom used to wear when he was a kid. Nonsense, just my imagination. He opened the first page and froze. It showed a humble house, a wooden porch, a boy around 8 years old sitting on the ground laughing with a dog in his lap. So far, nothing odd, but what made Arthur go pale was recognizing himself in the picture. This is photoshopped. How? He flipped the next few pages with trembling hands. Each image hit him like a punch to the gut. It was him, his childhood, the house he grew up in, the moments he thought he had forgotten. But who took those pictures? And even stranger, the last image on that page showed his father, but with something Arthur had never seen before. His father, crying, the man he always believed was made of stone, caught in tears, and someone had captured that moment. Arthur pulled over. Complete silence, just the ticking of the hazard lights and his pounding heart. Who is that old man? How does he have this? On the inside back cover of the album, a pencil-written message. Some memories we keep to remember who we are, others to remember who we must never become. Arthur felt a knot in his chest, and that, my friend, was just the beginning. But if you think that's all, take a deep breath, because what he found on the next page changed everything. Some things hurt more than a slap in the face. They're memories we didn't ask to remember. And that's exactly what Arthur found on the next page of the old homeless man's album. A folded, yellowed photo, as if it were ashamed of itself. But once opened, it screamed louder than any memory. It was a woman, dark hair, a sad smile, and in her eyes, a light that mixed hope and sorrow. Arthur took a few seconds to recognize her, but when he did, it was like being punched from the inside out. "No, it can't be her." The name slipped from his lips almost soundless. Livia. Livia. A name he hadn't spoken in over 20 years. A forbidden name, buried with broken promises and torn-up letters. The woman he loved in his youth and abandoned. The woman he made a point to forget. But there she was, alive in the photo, and in her lap, a baby. Arthur slammed the album shut, like someone trying to erase the truth with the palm of their hand. But the damage was done. He returned home in silence. The mansion felt colder than usual. Not even the expensive paintings, the polished marble, or the pompous silence could cover what was going on in his mind. In his office, he opened the album again, went through each photo, every page, a mirror of who he pretended not to be. Then he noticed something bizarre. The photos were in chronological order, from childhood to that exact moment. Yes, the last picture showed him in the car, holding the album. This some kind of prank? How could someone... He jumped out of the chair, looked out the window, nothing, just a manicured garden. His phone rang, unknown number. He answered, voice trembling. Hello? Silence. Then a raspy, familiar voice. She never hated you, Arthur. She just kept waiting for you to come back. Thump. The phone fell from his hand. This couldn't be real. It was his father's voice. Dead for over 15 years. Arthur sat down, sweaty, heart pounding like a hammer on steel. He grabbed the phone, called his assistant. Find everything you can about a homeless man who hangs out in front of Galeria Ramos selling junk. Now. Name, address, even his soul if you can. The assistant replied, Sir, there's no one selling anything there today or yesterday. In fact, that gallery's been closed for renovations for weeks. What do you mean? No one's been there for a long time. Arthur dropped the phone, looked at the album again, and noticed a folded paper between the pages. A note, handwritten in blue ink. If you want to know who she really was, go back to where it all began, but go alone. Arthur swallowed hard. In the corner of the paper, the name of his hometown, Santa Luisa do Norte, the town he swore never to return to. But now he had no choice, because what was in that album was only the beginning. Some towns never change, and others change so much you can't recognize them anymore. But Santa Luisa do Norte was different. It was like an old photograph someone tried to color, but the paint just ran down the edges. Arthur returned after more than 20 years, in a rented car, sunglasses hiding his eyes, and pride stuffed deep into the bottom of his suitcase. At the city entrance, a crooked sign still read, Santa Luisa do Norte, where time rests. Rests or rots, he muttered, passing the square where he first learned to ride a bike. Everything was smaller. The houses, the lampposts, even the sky seemed lower. But it wasn't just that. There was something in the air, a strange silence. Not peaceful silence, but the kind that hides something. He parked near the old school. Right there on the dusty sidewalk, he lit a cigarette. Something he hadn't done in years, but that came back like a reflex from a restless soul. He walked to the house where he'd lived with his parents. The house was still standing, but it looked like it had shrunk. Windows boarded up, rusty gate and the garden. Just overgrown weeds. He leaned his face against the fence. Inside, the porch he remembered, and an old swing, still creaking in the wind. Then, footsteps. "Who are you?" a small voice asked, almost a whisper. He turned. A girl, maybe 8 years old, stared at him suspiciously, clutching a book to her chest. "Sorry, I used to live here, a long time ago. My grandma says people don't come back from the past for no reason." Arthur smirked. "She sounds wise. She's not my real grandma, but she raised me. She lives over there, see? The house on the corner. Want to talk to her?" Before he could answer, an older woman appeared at the door of the house she pointed to. Arthur, he froze. It was her, Donna Irachema, the woman who looked after their house when he was a boy. Nanny, counselor, healer, and his mother's confidant. "I knew you'd come back. The wind told me yesterday." Arthur walked toward her, nearly stumbling over memories. "What's happening, Donna Irachema? Who was that man who gave me the album? And why was Livia in those photos?" She sighed deeply, looked around like she was checking if the world was listening. "Come inside, my son. Some things aren't told on the sidewalk." Inside her house, the smell was exactly as he remembered. Chamomile tea, old wood, and a bit of sadness. They sat at the table. "You want to know more than you're ready to hear, Arthur. But since you've made it this far..." She opened a drawer. From it, she pulled out a small wooden box. Inside, a cassette tape and a photo. The same woman from the album, Livia, but this time, pregnant. "You left more than a story behind, Arthur. You left a child." Arthur went speechless. The world tilted. "She had a baby. Your child, Arthur. And he grew up here. But he vanished 2 years ago. Just disappeared. No one knows where he is." He put a hand to his forehead. "Why? Why didn't she ever reach out to me?" "She did, but pride always arrived first." The old tape recorder was turned on, and Livia's voice filled the room. "Arthur, if you're hearing this, it means you finally overcame your pride. Our son is more like you than you realize. I just hope he didn't inherit your escapes, too. Arthur couldn't take it anymore. He stood up, stumbled out the door. Outside, the swing from his old house creaked again in the wind. But this time, it seemed to whisper a name Arthur didn't know yet, but one that would change everything. Arthur didn't sleep that night. Laid in the bed of the old inn, listening to the ceiling fan spin slowly, as if time had come back just to torture him. His head was burning. Livia's voice still echoed in the tape recorder, and that phrase, "Our son is more like you than you realize." He kept repeating it like a prison sentence. The next morning, he returned to Donna Irachema's house. She was already waiting for him on the porch, 2 strong coffees in hand, her eyes tired, as if they had seen too much for one lifetime. "I need to know his name," Arthur said straight out. "For what?" she replied without blinking. "Because he's my son. You know that now, but knowing isn't the same as accepting." He lowered his eyes. "I need to try. Give me that chance." "All right then." She walked into the house and returned with a yellowed envelope. Inside, a birth certificate, scribbled, stamped, nearly faded. And there it was, Caio Emanuel Varela. Arthur felt the ground disappear beneath him. That surname, his. She hadn't erased the past. She had passed it on. She used my last name. She never wanted to erase you, Arthur. She just wanted you to remember, but you did everything to forget. The name Caio began to echo in his mind. "And where is he now?" "You said he vanished 2 years ago. He left saying he was heading to the capital to submit some photos to a contest. Wanted to live off his art. He got that from his mother. She always had a good eye for images. Said he'd be back in a week. He never returned." Arthur stood up like the chair had grown thorns. "I'll find him, even if I have to turn the world upside down. If he's alive, I'll find him. And if he's not?" Donna Irachema asked, firm, like someone who's buried too many people. Arthur took a deep breath. "Then I'll find out what they did to him." He left with only one destination, the capital, and one lead, photography contest. In the car, the album was still on the passenger seat. He opened it again, flipped through to the second-to-last page. There, a photo he didn't remember seeing before, a teenage boy, alone on a street holding an old camera. In the background, a mural with graffiti read, "The world only sees those who dare to show it." On the back of the photo, handwritten, "Visual BR Contest, São Paulo, September 2023. That was it. That's where he would start. He hit the road like a beast running from its own shadow. But what he didn't know yet was that someone was watching him from far away, and that someone didn't want Arthur to find the truth, because Caio's story wasn't just his, and what was behind his disappearance had a name, an address, and blood. Some places don't appear on maps, but they show up in our destiny. Arthur arrived in São Paulo like someone landing on a new planet. The city buzzed, cars honking, people in a hurry, eyes that never meet. But he had no time to admire the chaos. He went straight to the address written on the photo, Visual BR Contest. When he got there, it was just an empty building. Locked doors, signs torn down. He knocked on the glass door, but no answer. He walked around the back, and a security guard intercepted him. Hey, sir, this place is closed. Didn't you see the sign?" "Sorry, I'm looking for someone." "A boy named Caio Emanuel. He participated in a contest here in September 2023. The guard crossed his arms. "Oh, yeah. That contest caused quite a stir. People said photos went missing, the prize was bought, that the winner wasn't even the best." Arthur's brow furrowed. "You remember the winner's name?" "Not really, but there was a kid who won over the public, some Caio East guy. The crowd gave him a standing ovation, but he disappeared before the awards." Arthur felt a chill down his spine. "Disappeared?" "Yeah, last anyone saw, he was walking down the street with some man in a black suit. No one knows who he was." "Any security cameras here?" "Not anymore. The building was sold to a developer." Arthur sighed, frustration rising. But before he left, the guard said something that sparked a glimmer of hope. "If you want to know more, talk to Marta. She worked for the organizers. She's got a sugarcane juice stand near Roosevelt Square. She was real upset about what they did to that contest. Arthur headed there. He found Marta, dyed hair, raspy smoker's voice, eyes too sharp for a juice vendor. When she heard the name Caio Emanuel, she went pale. The boy with the black and white photos? Yes, he's my son. I'm trying to find him. She looked down. He was special. Never seen anyone photograph pain with such beauty. One of the judges said his images told secrets no one wanted to hear. You know what happened to him? All I know is he was erased. Literally. The day before the results, his portfolio vanished. What was left was destroyed. They said he didn't meet technical requirements. Lies. The truth is that he showed something that upset powerful people. Arthur leaned in. Well, what did he show? She looked around, then whispered, photos of the homeless, but not just any photos. He captured missing people, people the government claimed had been relocated. He showed they were being hunted, silenced, forgotten. Arthur's eyes widened. My son exposed a system? Yes, and he paid for it. After that, no one saw him again. She handed him a piece of paper, a copy of the only image that survived the exhibition. It showed a child sleeping on the ground, hugging a camera. In the lower corner, a huge shadow approaching. He knew they were after him, but he didn't stop. Arthur was silent. He felt the weight of pride, of absence, of lost time. But right there, on that noisy street, he made a decision. I'll find him, or I'll expose whoever erased him. Marta grabbed his hand. If you do that, be careful. These people don't play around. And at that moment, Arthur noticed a black car parked across the street, tinted windows, engine running, the same car he swore he'd seen in his childhood. There are sounds that stick in your memory like splinters in your finger, small but impossible to ignore. And in that moment, Arthur heard a sound he hadn't heard in decades, but he recognized it instantly. A whistle. 3 slow notes. The same sequence his father used when he wanted to call attention, without raising his voice. No way, Arthur whispered, frozen on the sidewalk. The black car was still there, engine running, and the rear window began to lower, very slowly, as if it knew it was about to reveal a ghost. But there was no one inside, just an envelope left on the seat. The car drove off without a sound. Arthur ran over and grabbed the envelope through the open window. Inside, a single sheet of paper, and on it the sentence, "Not every missing person is dead, but not every living person is free." Below that, an address, Rua Bernardino, 703, former São Miguel Hospital building. Arthur held onto the paper like he was clutching a stick of dynamite with a lit fuse. He drove straight there. The area was isolated, industrial, nearly deserted. The hospital building was abandoned, broken windows, graffiti, and an iron gate chained shut with rusted links. He forced it open with a heavy shove. Inside, it was pitch dark. The smell of mold, old sweat, and something else. Dried blood. He climbed the stairs with his phone flashlight in hand, reached the second floor. Half-open doors, scattered medical records, hospital beds with stained sheets. Then he saw it. On the wall of the central room, taped up, a photo. It was Caio, alone, staring into the camera, with an expression that mixed anger, exhaustion, and compassion. Below the photo, scribbled in pen, he saw too much. Arthur dropped to his knees. That was his son. And it was clear, this wasn't just a disappearance, it was an abduction. He got up, staggering, when he heard footsteps. Behind him, the door slammed shut. 2 men entered. Black suits, no expressions. "Mr. Arthur Varela, you need to come with us." "Who are you?" "Institutional security. You're in a restricted area." Arthur looked around, saw a syringe on the floor, and panic set in. "Where is my son?" The men exchanged glances. One replied coldly, "Your son is being relocated." "Relocated? This is kidnapping." "He's not dead, but he no longer belongs to the civil system." Arthur screamed, tried to run, but they restrained him. He was shoved into a vehicle, hooded, no chance to see where they were going. After nearly an hour, the vehicle stopped. He was dragged into a room and tied to a chair. The hood came off, bright light in his face. In front of him, a familiar figure, his business partner, Leandro, trusted man for years, always discreet, always in the shadows. "Arthur, I told you it was better to forget the past." You knew about my son. He was interfering in business. He was investigating a program we funded, thinking it was humanitarian aid. And it wasn't. It was population control, urban cleanup, removing the undesirables. Your son almost blew it all open. He had to be contained. Arthur was in shock. "Where is he? I want to see him. Now!" Leandro stepped closer. "You have to choose, Arthur. Forget everything and go back to your rich, comfortable life, or keep digging and bury the Varela name for good." Arthur stared him down, and for the first time, he wasn't afraid. He felt shame for the man he had been. He stood slowly. "You can arrest me. You can kill me. But now, I'm Caio's father, and no one can take that away." Silence. Until at the back of the room, a door opened, and a figure appeared in the shadows. Tall, thin, a camera hanging from his neck. "Dad," Arthur nearly fainted. It was him. Some reunions don't need words. A single look says everything. But this one needed every word that had never been spoken. Arthur looked at the young man in the doorway. His heart pounded like it was trying to break free from his chest. Caio looked different. Thinner, hardened gaze, a patchy beard on his face. But the eyes were Livia's, and inside them was too much pain to fit in just one hug. "Caio?" Arthur's voice cracked. The boy didn't reply. Just stood there, still. The camera on his chest swayed with his breath, fast and shallow. "It's me. I'm your father." Caio lifted his chin. "Father? Now?" The words were dry, sharp. Arthur took the blow but didn't retreat. I know I wasn't there. I vanished. I ran from everything, but I didn't know you existed. I swear I didn't." Silence fell. Caio walked slowly toward him. "And if you had known, would you have stayed, raised me, or just done what you always do, walk away?" Arthur lowered his eyes. "No excuse. I don't have an excuse, only a will. A will to know you, to know who you are, and to ask your forgiveness, even if I don't deserve it." Caio took a deep breath, looked at the suited men behind, then stared at Leandro. "They've kept me here, said it was for my protection, but it's a prison, and I'm tired of being their dirty secret." Arthur turned to Leandro. "Let him go, or I'll drag all of this to the press, the world, wherever it needs to go." Leandro chuckled. "Arthur, you still think you have that kind of power?" Arthur stepped forward. "No, but my son does. He has the images. He has the evidence. And now, he has me." Caio placed his hand on the camera. "Everything is here. The truth, the missing people, the fake rehab projects, the ghost clinics. I documented it all. And if I disappear again, copies of this are with people in 5 different countries." Leandro hesitated. "You're not leaving this place." That's when Marta appeared at the door. Yes, the sugarcane juice lady. But now, with an international press badge hanging around her neck, behind her, 2 journalists and a running camera. "Oh yes, they are. And you're going to smile for the camera, because this is going to be the cover story." Arthur looked at her, stunned. Marta winked. "The boy saved my brother from the streets with a photo. Now it's my turn to save him." The room flipped. The suited men backed off. Leandro tried to run, but it was too late. Police arrived next, the real kind, with warrants, with evidence, and Caio finally breathed free. Outside, the sun was already starting to set, but at that moment time seemed to be born again. Arthur put a hand on his son's shoulder. "Can I call you son?" Caio took a while, but nodded. "You can. But you'll have to get to know me first." Arthur smiled, tears in his eyes, but not the kind that hurt. They were tears of a new beginning. "Then show me the world through your eyes. I want to see what you saw," Arthur said. Caio handed him the camera. And through that tiny viewfinder, Arthur saw a boy smiling with his mother. He saw the pain of the forgotten. He saw beauty hidden in chaos. And he saw something he'd never truly recognized before: hope. Some truths are so heavy that when they come to light, they don't just crush reputations. They bring empires to their knees. And that's exactly what happened in the following weeks. Arthur and Caio became the center of a storm. Caio's photos were shared by newspapers, independent media, NGOs, international forums, images of invisible people, children sleeping beside burning barrels, men and women with open eyes, but closed hopes, elderly abandoned in illegal shelters. But what shocked everyone the most were the documents, signed contracts, partnerships between shell companies and public agencies, a cleanup operation that promised dignity, but was actually disguised extermination, exile, pretending to be aid, and right in the middle of it all, Arthur Varella's name, because, even unknowingly, the empire he'd built was tied to it all. The headlines exploded. Son exposes crimes linked to his own father. From abandonment to justice, Caio Emanuel's turning point. Architecture of shame. Millionaire funded fraudulent social projects. Arthur now sat in front of the TV, watching his own face in the news. But he didn't feel anger. He felt guilt. "I built palaces on the ruins of living people," he said, staring at his reflection in the window. Caio, from across the room, heard him, but said nothing. That night, the two of them stayed in Donna Irachema's modest house. On the wall, an improvised frame held one of Caio's photos, two dirty hands holding a stick like it was a diamond. "She would have been proud of you," Arthur murmured, looking at the image. "You talk about my mother like she's still close." "Isn't she?" he replied. "Sometimes I feel like she's the only good thing left inside me." Silence. Then the phone rang. It was Arthur's lawyer. "The board removed you. You've been ousted from the company, but the courts won't charge you. They understand you were manipulated. The decisions were masked." Arthur didn't celebrate. "And what does that change? I still stayed blind." He hung up, turned to Caio. "What do you want me to do now?" Caio looked at him, serious. No resentment, but no forced affection either. "You don't have to be a businessman anymore, Arthur. Be a father, and be useful." The following week, father and son attended a public hearing. Arthur apologized on national television. Caio presented a project, Voices of the Street, a foundation to teach photography to youth living on the streets. Arthur funded it, but asked for his name to be left out. "I've been seen enough. Now let them see the invisible." Months later, what had been a scandal became a documentary. It won awards. They were invited to universities. Caio became a symbol of resistance, and Arthur became a man under reconstruction. But not everything was public. Some nights, the two of them would sit together on Donna Irachema's porch, drinking reheated coffee, listening to crickets, barely talking. One night, Caio said, "I always dreamed of having a father, but deep down, I just wanted to be heard." Arthur picked up Caio's camera, pointed it at his son, and said, "Then speak, I'm listening now," and clicked. That photo was never published. It stayed between them, and maybe for that very reason, it was the most beautiful of all. There are silences that speak louder than grand speeches, and there are images that say what 1,000 words don't dare. It was on a cloudy morning that the first exhibit of Voices of the Street came to life. An abandoned warehouse in downtown São Paulo, transformed into a gallery of light, concrete and emotion. No red carpet, no expensive champagne, but there was a line out the door. People in suits next to people in flip-flops, artists, teachers, children, former homeless people with shining eyes, seeing for the first time their stories framed on the walls. Arthur arrived early. Low profile, simple suit, scruffy beard, that vain man from before, left in the rearview mirror. Inside, he saw the photos, each more powerful than the last. Marked faces, exposed scars, shown with dignity. People the world tried to erase, but there they were, big, alive, undeniable. In the center of the gallery, a special installation, a clothesline hanging above with dozens of old cameras, all donated by volunteers, refurbished by project students. And on a wooden panel, a painted phrase, "The lens may be small, but the gaze can change the world." Caio stood beside the exhibit, surrounded by young people. This one was Joan's camera. He spent 17 years on the street. Now he photographs weddings in the East Zone, he explained proudly. Arthur approached. They looked at each other. "Can I take one of these cameras too?" Arthur joked gently. "You can, but you'll have to go through the intensive course and listen to a lot of stories. I'm ready. Who knows? Maybe I'll become someone useful." Caio smiled. It was the first time Arthur saw him smile that way. Free, light, whole. Then a reporter approached, microphone in hand. "Caio, how would you define your father today?" A direct question. The room went quiet. Arthur stood still, unsure whether to stay or slip away. But Caio answered, looking straight into his father's eyes. "He's the man who showed me who not to be, and then taught me that change is possible." Arthur lowered his head. Tears held in. The reporter followed up. "And was it easy to forgive?" "Easy? No, but necessary." The camera clicked. That photo, father and son, side by side, surrounded by formerly invisible people finally in the light, became a magazine cover, an award, a symbol. But for them, it was just another step. At the end of the exhibit, a humble old woman approached Arthur. "Mr. That boy in the photos, Caio, is he really your son?" "He is, Mom." "Well, congratulations. You almost lost him, but got him back. Not everyone gets that chance." Arthur swallowed hard, thanked her with a nod, and watched her disappear into the crowd. On the sidewalk, as the night slowly descended, he looked up at the cloudy sky and thought of Livia. "You would have loved all this, wouldn't you? Would have laughed at me, then hugged me." Caio came up beside him. "Talking to someone? To your mother? Or to the longing I feel for her? She still lives. In us." Arthur nodded, and together they walked down the street. No rush. Because now, finally, they weren't running from the past. Some things we don't lose, we leave them behind. And that's exactly what Arthur did that day. He left behind his own last name, not out of shame, but out of justice. It happened in a small ceremony in the civil registry office of the town where it all began, Santa Luisa do Norte. Arthur walked into the office with a paper in his hand and a weight on his shoulders. Caio walked beside him, silently. At the counter, the clerk read the request, eyes wide. "You want to give up the surname Varela?" "Yes, I want to leave that name for the one who deserves a new beginning. Me, I'll carry another one now." "And what will it be?" Arthur smiled. "Arthur Emmanuel, that's it, my first name, and the second from my son." Caio's eyes widened. He hadn't expected that, not at all. "You don't have to do this. I don't have to, but I want to. I want you to carry that surname freely, without the weight of who I was. And if someday they call me by a different name, let it be for who I am now." The clerk signed the documents. From that moment on, Arthur Varela ceased to exist. Outside, the midday sun was blazing. The cicadas sang loud in the heat. Arthur breathed deeply, as if it was the first time in decades. "You know, Caio, when I was a boy, my father used to say that our name is what's left after we die. And do you believe that? Today, I think, our name is what we have the courage to leave behind so we can be born again." Caio smiled. "You sound like my mother now, and you sound like yourself for the first time." That afternoon they visited the town cemetery, simple, old, silent. They brought flowers to Livia's grave. Caio knelt, gently touched the headstone. Arthur stood, not knowing what to say. Then he pulled a small plaque from his pocket and placed it in the earth beside her tomb. On the plaque it read, "Here lies silence, because now the truth speaks for us." They stayed there for a while. The wind blew softly, and it seemed to carry the scent of orange blossoms. Caio stood, looked at his father. "And now? Where do we go?" Arthur replied. Wherever the lens points and the heart leads. Months later, Kaio released a photo book from the Voices of the Street project. In the dedication he wrote, "To the man who wasn't my hero, but had the courage to be human." And Arthur? He became a volunteer teacher, taught photography, ethics, and regret. One day in class, a student asked, "Sir, were you ever rich?" He smiled. "Rich? Oh yes, but I was poor in myself." And now, Arthur thought, looked at a photo on the wall, a child smiling, barefoot on the sidewalk. Now, I'm someone who feels, and that's worth more than any full vault. The class applauded. But he didn't need applause. He needed peace, and for the first time, it had returned. Some memories don't come in pictures, they come in objects, and when we touch them, it's like time touches us back. It was on a rainy afternoon that Donna Irachema called Arthur and Kaio back to her house. She had a bundle in her hands, old wrapping paper, tied with a red ribbon. "I just remembered I kept this. Livia gave it to me before she passed. She asked me to only hand it over if one day you two came back to this porch." Arthur took the box with reverence. Kaio stood beside him, quiet. They opened it carefully. Inside, letters, drawings, and a blue-covered notebook in Livia's unmistakable handwriting. Arthur ran his hand over the first page and began to read softly. "Kaio, my love, if you ever find this notebook, I want you to know that you were my best photograph. You're the portrait I didn't need to take to know it was beautiful. And if you find your father, listen with your heart. He has flaws, but also has seeds." Arthur couldn't hold back his tears. Kaio pulled one of the letters. It was addressed to Arthur, in trembling letters. "Arthur, I never hated you. I understood you. You were just another scared little boy trying to look big, and I was just a woman who loved without a manual. If you ever find our son again, look closely. He carries the best of us both. And do me a favor, learn to love before life shuts the window again." The silence in the room seemed to scream. Arthur closed his eyes, rested his forehead on the box, and whispered, "Forgive me. Forgive me for running away, for leaving you both, for turning into stone when all I needed was to be human." Kaio stood, hugged his father. "She already forgave you, Dad. Now, you just need to forgive yourself." They stayed like that for long minutes, as if trying to reclaim the time pride had devoured. Then, Kaio took a small envelope from the box. Inside, a key. "There's an address written here," Donna Irachema explained. "That was Livia's studio. She rented a little room behind the old church. No one's touched it since she left. Everything's just as she left it." The next day, they went to the studio. Wooden door, peeling paint, scent of dust and mint. Inside, the world stopped. Negatives, clotheslines with clips, frames without glass, film rolls, and an old typewriter with a page still in it, on the paper to just one sentence. "To photograph is to freeze the soul, and the soul doesn't lie." Kaio walked slowly through the memories. Arthur picked up one particular photo from the floor. It was him, and Livia very young, laughing, no filters, no poses. "I don't even remember this." Kaio replied, "I don't think time makes us forget. We just pretend." They gathered the photos, organized the negatives, and decided the studio would become a memorial, not of pain, but of forgotten love. And in that simple room behind the church, the Livia space was born, a cultural center for street youth with image workshops, storytelling, support, and art. On opening day, Arthur gave a short speech. No script. "This place is for those who never had a portrait on a wall, for those who only showed up in tragedy headlines. Now you'll tell your stories, your way, because everyone deserves to be remembered for what they feel, not what they've lost." Applause, hugs, and a feeling he hadn't had in ages. Pride in himself. Some things begin where others end, and some people only appear once we've truly learned to see. Months after the inauguration of Livia Space, Arthur woke up with a strange thought pounding in his mind. And the old man? The homeless man with the album? Who was he really? That encounter felt more and more impossible. The album that changed everything. the mysterious phrases, the photos of a past Arthur didn't even remember. And the most haunting part, how did that man have images Arthur had never even seen in his life? Caio had the same questions. We looked for him afterward. No one knew him. No one had seen him, not around the gallery, not in shelters, not in any government database. And his name, Arthur asked. We never found out. But you know what's crazier? One of the photos in the album, it's in a book of historic photography from the National Library. Same angle, same scene, but credited to a war photographer in 1972. Arthur frowned. That's impossible. That photo was my childhood, my mother's house. It was me. Caio shook his head. The image is there, Dad. Same frame, same shadow on the right. Only one thing is different, the boy. In the book version, it's a different child. Arthur swallowed hard. You're saying someone's playing with time. I'm saying maybe time isn't the straight line we think it is. Maybe it's a spiral. And maybe... The old man knew that. That afternoon, Arthur returned to the exact spot where he'd first met the homeless man, the old Galleria Ramos. Now, in its place, a parking lot. Automated gate, fresh concrete, security guards. But Arthur recognized the side wall, and there, on the ground, under a metal bench, an envelope, plain. His name handwritten, Arthur Emanuel. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside, a note, written in the same handwriting as the first note that came with the album. You chose to remember. Now, teach others not to forget. And with the note, a photo. Yes, another one. This time, it was Arthur, now with white hair, sitting on the porch of the Livia space, holding a child in his arms, and behind him, in the background, the old man, same hat, same expression. Arthur turned the note over. On the back, just one word, gratitude. He looked around, searched for the man. Nothing. But he smelled something, not trash, not street. It smelled like something old, like wet wood and cemetery flowers. He returned home in silence, showed the photo to Caio. He appeared again. Caio examined the image closely. Dad, this photo was taken 2 days ago by the project's camera. We installed it on the porch. No one remembers seeing this old man here. Arthur shook his head, a mix of fear and peace. I don't think he was just a man. He was a warning, a sign, maybe even a second chance. Caio asked quietly. A second chance at what? Arthur answered without hesitation. At doing the right thing, before time closes the door. And that night, for the first time, Arthur dreamed of his childhood, and without pain. He dreamed of his mother laughing, of Livia, alive, and the old man sitting on a bench saying, Now you see, now the story's good. Some revelations come like thunder, but this one came like a whisper, low, cold, and impossible to ignore. 2 weeks after the mysterious note, Caio called Arthur urgently to the basement of the Livia space. Dad, you need to see this. They went down the old stairs. Below, boxes of old materials, recovered negatives, disassembled cameras. But what Caio held wasn't any of those. It was a developed roll of film, just returned from a photo workshop with young students. He spread the photos one by one on the wooden table. These were taken by Jessica, that girl from Cracolandia. She was photographing the empty courtyard one morning, testing light and shadows, and captured this. Arthur leaned in. The first image, the corridor, empty. The second, a shadow passing. The third, the old man. Yes, the same old man. The one with the album. But this time, clearer than ever. And the strangest thing, he was looking straight into the camera, as if he knew he was being seen. Arthur rubbed his face, mouth dry. No one saw him in person. No one. Only the camera caught it. Then came the fourth photo, and at that moment, the world stopped. In the picture, Arthur appeared, but not as he was now. It was him, about 30 years old. Same face, same expression, standing in front of the Livia space, as if visiting his own future. Is this edited? He asked, his voice shaky. Caio had already checked. No, it's from the original film. developed directly. No manipulation. Arthur stumbled into a chair. This makes no sense. I was never here at that age. Never even been to this place back then. Kaio sat next to him. The only explanation is that time isn't linear. Maybe there's a crack somewhere. A point where timelines cross. Arthur laughed, a nervous, broken laugh. You're saying I saw my future, or that the old man showed me. I'm saying this story is bigger than what we can grasp. And maybe the old man made you see where you were going before you got there. Silence. Rain started to pour outside, and the basement seemed to shrink around them. Arthur picked up the photos with trembling hands. Did I dream all this? Am I just waking up now? Kaio answered calmly. Or maybe now. You're dreaming the right way. That same night, Arthur wrote something in a notebook, firm handwriting, page by page. It was the first time he put the entire story down in words. From the album, the reunion, the project, the old man, the name change. When he reached the last page, he wrote, If someone finds this notebook, know this. Life taught me late, but truth always arrives in time. He closed the notebook, placed it inside the Livia Space's safe. No lock, no password, because those who truly need to read it will always find a way to open it. Some lessons don't come from school. They come from pain, and some teachers we only understand once life has already given us the lesson. Time passed. Livia Space grew. It gained recognition, funding, new branches, but it kept the same soul, invisible people teaching others how to see. Kaio became a reference. He gave lectures, published books, was nominated for awards he never dreamed of. And Arthur? Arthur stayed mostly behind the scenes. He organized, wrote, mentored newcomers, made coffee, swept the floors. But his favorite role was sitting on the front porch in the late afternoon, telling stories. There, in that little corner of the main center, with a crooked wooden bench and a torn hammock, he became what he had always wanted to be, a storyteller. Children sat around him, teenagers laughed, even adults grew quiet to listen. Today, I'll tell you about the day I bought a piece of the past and nearly died from fright. He'd begin, with that glimmer in his eyes, the eyes of a man who had finally forgiven himself. The stories changed, but one thing never did. At the end, he always said, we aren't made of what we have. We're made of what we don't forget. But that day, Arthur didn't show up on the porch. Kaio found it strange. He went upstairs to his father's room. The door was slightly ajar, the bedside lamp still on, and there he was, Arthur, sitting, eyes closed, a gentle smile on his face. In his hand, the album. Yes, that album. Opened on the first photo. Arthur had passed, peacefully, without pain, without warning, but with everything said. Kaio sat on the floor beside the body. He cried, quietly. Then he saw something between his father's fingers, a folded paper. He opened it. It was Arthur's handwriting. A simple note. Son, if you're reading this, it means time has taken my body, but I leave you what no one can bury, the courage to feel. Go forward, and if one day someone asks who your father was, tell them he made a lot of mistakes, but he finished right. Kaio closed his eyes, held his father one last time. Then, as if understanding his own destiny, he went down to the porch, sat on the bench. The children were already there, waiting. And he began. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of a man who didn't know how to love, but who learned, just in time. His voice cracked at first, but then it grew steady, warm. And that night, the entire space listened to the story of the man with the album, of the old man who sold memories, of the father who became a friend, and at the end, Kaio looked up at the sky and was sure, up there, on an invisible porch, someone was smiling and saying, now it's good. Now the story's real good. Some people are born invisible, but were never meant to live erased. Years passed since that day. Livia Space now had murals painted by artists from around the world, mobile libraries, photography darkrooms, an auditorium, a community kitchen, and, most special of all, a wall of portraits called Those Who Came Back to Life. At the entrance, a plaque read, "There are no beggars here, only memories." Caio walked the halls with the same quiet step as always. People called him Professor, Doctor, Mr. Caio, but he only smiled in return, as if carrying a secret too beautiful to explain. At the end of every month, he opened the last box in the cabinet, the one no one else was allowed to touch. Inside, the album. Yes, the same one. Still old, still scented, but now with new pages, photos taken by youth, by ex-addicts, by children who once lived on sidewalks and now lived in homes. And at the end, he always left one page blank, not by mistake, but by faith. This one's for the next, because there's always a next, he'd say. One day a 7-year-old girl, dark-skinned, big-eyed, approached him as he closed the album. "Uncle Caio, who was the first person in the story?" He thought for a moment and replied, "It was a man who bought an album thinking it was trash and discovered it was his own soul, screaming to be seen." The girl went silent, then asked, "Was it you?" Caio smiled, looked at the wall. There, among the portraits, one stood out, black and white, a white-haired man sitting on a porch, holding an album, eyes gently closed. Arthur. "No, it was my father, and he taught me the greatest lesson of all." "What lesson?" "That there's still time." She didn't understand it then, but one day she would. And on that golden evening, as the sunlight painted the bricks of Livia space and the leaves swayed like a soft applause, Caio sat on the porch, alone again. The camera hanging from his neck, he pointed it at the horizon and clicked, the last photo of the album. In it, only the sky, but in the corner, a shadow, a curved figure, with a hat, smiling. The old man, still there, like every good storyteller, waiting for the next listener. And that's the story, my friend. What did you think of this tale? Leave your comment down below, hit like to support the channel, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss another great story. Until next time, from your Grandpa Rich.